Think back to the last time you ordered something online. It could have been something practical, something you needed, or maybe just something you wanted. You hit buy now, and for a moment, there was a quiet little thrill, a sense of reward like you'd taken care of something. Done your part. You checked the tracking page once, then again, maybe a few times a day. When the package finally arrived, you opened it with that familiar anticipation, like opening a small promise. But here's the strange part. 10 minutes later, that feeling, it was gone. No excitement, no change, just back to normal. If you've ever felt that, you're not alone. Today, shopping isn't just a transaction, it's a designed emotional experience. The act of buying has been shaped into something that feels personal, something that mimics progress, even meaning. It feels like a small win, like control, like self-care. But that feeling is short-lived for a reason. We're no longer just buying things. We're buying what those things represent, not functionality, but identity. Lifestyle, a story we're trying to tell ourselves. This is who I am, or at least who I'm becoming. But that story is curated, not created, and it rarely matches the reality we live in. So why does it fade so fast? Because what we're being sold isn't built to last. It's engineered to feel good just long enough to make us come back for more. That moment of pleasure when we click buy is a dopamine hit. Quick, shallow, and fleeting. It gives just enough satisfaction to keep us hooked, but not enough to ever feel complete. That's the loop. You buy something hoping it'll scratch the itch. And when it doesn't, you assume the problem is the thing, not the system that convinced you to want it in the first place. Modern advertising has evolved past selling products. It now sells lack. It tells you you're falling behind, that your wardrobe is outdated, that your lifestyle is bland, that your car, your home, even your weekend could all be better if only you had this one more thing. And just like that, the bar gets moved again. You're not chasing satisfaction anymore. You're chasing the illusion of being caught up. But the finish line never comes. And somewhere along the way, we stopped asking what we truly value and started performing a version of ourselves built out of upgrades, memberships, and monthly payments. That's the great deception, that buying more will finally make us feel like we're enough. But meaning doesn't come in a box. And the person you want to be, they're not waiting in the next purchase. They're waiting behind the noise. At the core of modern consumerism lies something far more powerful than flashy ads or clever slogans. It's behavior design. And one of its earliest architects was a psychologist named B.F. Skinner. Skinner discovered that if you want to shape behavior, the most effective method isn't persuasion or punishment. It's reward, especially when that reward comes immediately after the action. Give someone a small treat right after they press a button, and you've got the beginnings of a habit. Do it again, and the behavior sticks. Over time, the person doesn't even realize they're being conditioned. That's the framework behind much of the modern economy. We've become subjects in an invisible lab, responding to cues and rewards we barely notice. Every buy now button, every sale countdown, every dopamine rush. It's part of a carefully crafted loop designed to keep you coming back. Here's how it works. You feel a sense of lack. You see something that promises to fill that gap. You buy. Dopamine floods your brain. You feel better, but only for a moment. Then, almost without warning, the high fades, and you're back to where you started. Only now with a little more stuff and the same hollow feeling. So you scroll, you browse, you chase that feeling again and again. Because marketing today doesn't just sell you a product, it sells you a story of inadequacy. The messaging is subtle but relentless. You're not quite there yet. You could be better. You'd be more lovable, more impressive, more respected. If only you had this. It's not about the thing. It's about the feeling it temporarily gives you, and the feeling it tells you you're missing. This cycle has nothing to do with your willpower or intelligence. It's not that you're impulsive or broken. It's that the game was rigged from the start. The system doesn't want you to feel complete. If you did, you'd stop feeding it. That's not profitable. Instead, it needs you restless. It needs you slightly anxious. It needs you to think that the next thing, just one more upgrade, one more item, one more hit, will finally do the trick. But it never does. That feeling of not enough isn't a personal flaw. It's a planned feature, one that turns your psychology into profit, one that teaches you to measure your worth by your next purchase, rather than your present self. You were never supposed to feel done, because the moment you do, the system stops working. Somewhere along the way, we stopped being defined by who we are and started being measured by what we have. The shift was subtle at first. A new watch, a better phone, a car that says, "I've made it." But over time, identity and ownership became fused, not in our hearts, but in how the world reflects us back to ourselves. Psychologist Carl Jung once described two versions of the self: the real self, who we are at our core, and the ideal self, who we think we're supposed to be. In a healthy mind, those two selves move closer over time. But in a consumer-driven world, the opposite happens. The ideal self isn't shaped by values, relationships, or introspection. It's shaped by advertising, by images, by curated ideals that are sold to us and measured in things. So instead of asking, "What kind of person am I becoming?" we ask, "What kind of image am I projecting?" It's no longer about character, it's about optics. Your car, your phone, your home office aesthetic on Zoom, your vacation photos, even if you're burned out the whole time. Society has trained us to decorate our lives as if we're always being watched. And the truth is, we are. Social media didn't just amplify this pressure, it turned it into a full-time performance. Now, even our leisure is a brand. We show off our routines, our gear, our style, not because we're vain, but because we've been taught that visibility equals value. You could be deeply unhappy, drowning in debt, disconnected from your real needs. But as long as the image is polished, no one will question you. And over time, you stop questioning yourself too. The result? We become actors in our own lives, playing roles we didn't audition for, living scenes we didn't write, smiling for an audience we can't see, hoping the applause will make the emptiness feel worth it. But it never does, because when your identity is built on things that can be bought, it becomes fragile. Every trend, every new release, every algorithm update threatens to make you feel irrelevant. You're only as good as your last purchase, as your last post, as your last external validation. And slowly, without even realizing it, we trade our authenticity for approval, our values for aesthetics, our presence for performance. We start asking, "How do I look?" instead of "How do I feel?" Do they like me? Instead of "Do I like myself?" That's the cost of the false self. Not just money, but meaning. And in the chase to become someone, we lose sight of the person we already were. Picture this. Someone works 60 hours a week, commutes, meetings, late-night emails. Somewhere in the margins of their week, they spend another 10 hours browsing online stores, clicking, comparing, wish listing, and another 5 hours, maybe more, watching influencer content that feels like entertainment but functions as marketing. That's 75 hours of doing, buying, wanting. And do you know how many hours they spend just sitting quietly, alone with their thoughts? 0. We weren't always like this. Once, the point of work was to support life, not to consume our lives. Earning money used to mean building stability, security, or a future. But now, for many, it simply means earning more to spend more. Spend to feel good. Spend to feel less empty. Spend to avoid thinking about the fact that deep down we're not really living. Because consumption has crept into every corner of our days. It's no longer limited to shopping malls or sales weekends. It happens in your feed, in your inbox, in your so-called free time. You sit down to relax, and within seconds, you're browsing, scrolling, clicking, not because you need anything, but because you've been trained to associate rest with reward, and reward with spending. We don't walk to clear our minds. We walk through stores. We don't spend the afternoon with ourselves. We spend it online. Leisure has been replaced by lifestyle curation. Silence has been replaced by scrolling. Even rest has a price tag now. And here's the strangest part. Many of us don't even realize it's happening. We say we're just unwinding, just checking a few things. But it's no coincidence that our quiet moments are the most aggressively targeted by consumer culture. That's when we're vulnerable, bored, lonely, tired. The perfect time to suggest that maybe a new item will make things better. But it never really does. Because the truth is, we've forgotten how to simply exist without purchasing, without upgrading, without packaging our lives into something that looks productive or worthy of sharing. We've forgotten what it's like to sit with stillness, with boredom, with ourselves. And maybe that's the most dangerous part, because when consumption becomes the default setting, life itself becomes fragmented. Moments aren't experienced, they're monetized. Presence is replaced by pursuit. And slowly, the idea of doing nothing starts to feel wasteful, even wrong. But doing nothing isn't a waste. It's where reflection happens, creativity, clarity. It's how we remember who we are outside the noise, outside the algorithms, outside the endless cycle of work, earn, spend, repeat. Until we reclaim those moments, those unbranded, unmonetized moments, we'll keep mistaking consumption for living. And we'll keep buying, not because we want to, but because we've forgotten how not to. Not all happiness is created equal. Psychologist Martin Seligman made a simple but powerful distinction. Pleasure and meaning are not the same. Pleasure is short-term, it's sensory, it feels good in the moment, but it fades. Meaning, on the other hand, is deeper. It gives our lives a sense of direction, connection, and purpose. You can feel pleasure and still feel empty, but when you live with meaning, even the hard moments carry weight. Modern consumerism knows this difference, and it bets on the fact that you don't. That's why everything we buy is designed to offer pleasure, but never meaning, a rush of dopamine, a spark of excitement, but nothing that lasts, because lasting fulfillment doesn't generate repeat purchases. Temporary highs do, so we keep reaching for the next box, the next upgrade, the next notification that says, your order has shipped. We're chasing feelings, not things, hoping that maybe this time the feeling will stick. But it never does, because no package can fill an internal void. We're trying to buy our way into a state of peace, into belonging, into worthiness. But what we get is just stimulation, not satisfaction. And after every peak, there's a quiet fall, a dip, sometimes subtle, sometimes sharp, but always there. That post-purchase hollow moment when you realize the thrill is gone and nothing inside you has truly changed. That emptiness, it's not a glitch, it's a signal. It's your deeper self trying to speak underneath the noise. It's asking for something more than another dopamine hit. It's asking for meaning. But instead of listening, we often panic. We scroll, we spend, we numb ourselves again. Not because we're weak, but because the system trained us to soothe discomfort with consumption. And so we end up trying to fill an internal absence with external objects. But the two don't match. You can't solve a spiritual need with material solutions. You can't fix loneliness with luxury. You can't heal disconnection with another delivery. That's the real trap. We think we're making choices, but often we're just reacting to discomfort, to pressure, to curated illusions of other people's perfect lives. And the more we chase pleasure without meaning, the more disconnected we become from ourselves. Because true fulfillment doesn't spike and crash. It doesn't need a receipt. It comes quietly, through purpose, through presence, through relationships, and moments that can't be monetized. Until we remember that difference between a hit and a truth, between a thrill and a purpose, we'll keep confusing stimulation for satisfaction, and we'll keep searching for something that no algorithm can sell. But what happens when you stop? When you put the phone down, close the tab, resist the scroll, and just sit with yourself? That moment feels strange at first, like something's missing, like you're forgetting to be busy. But if you stay long enough, something begins to rise to the surface. Not boredom, not lack, but a version of yourself you haven't heard from in a while. Let me tell you a story. A man once tried a challenge, 30 days with no online shopping, just to test his willpower. Day 3, he almost gave in. Day 5, he started journaling out of sheer restlessness. But by week 2, he realized something. It wasn't the stuff he missed. It was the distraction, the noise, the little dopamine hits that gave him the illusion of motion. And when that faded, something else took its place. Clarity. He read more, slept deeper, called his mom, not because he had to, but because he actually wanted to. He didn't save a fortune, but he found something better. The space to feel like himself again. That's what they can't sell you. Not peace, not stillness, not the feeling of being whole without needing something new. They can sell you noise, upgrades, a curated life, but not presence, not agency, not the power to choose silence over stimulus. And that's why they fight so hard for your attention. Because your attention is the gateway to your freedom. Consumption isn't the enemy. Buying something you love, something useful, that's not the problem. But unconscious consumption is, the kind that fills every quiet moment, the kind that numbs instead of nourishes, the kind that whispers, "Buy this," before you've even asked, "Do I need anything at all?" The system thrives when you don't pause, but the moment you do, the moment you interrupt the loop, something changes. Each time you stop and ask, "Is this for me or for the mask I think I have to wear?" you reclaim a little piece of yourself, a little sovereignty, a little space to breathe. And that space, that's what they can't package, can't market, can't deliver in 2 days. So the next time the urge hits, pause, 10 seconds. Ask, will this make me more of who I am, or just someone easier to sell to? That question won't change the world overnight, but it might change you. And the more of us who wake up, the more fragile this system becomes. Because the one thing it cannot survive is a person who remembers how to live without it.